started crying this morning. I hate crying. I don't cry pretty. Some of you cry those pretty tears. You can sell tickets when I cry. It's an event. I mean, I started crying. I thought of just nostalgia. I was thinking about Pastor Regina, and I just couldn't love her anymore. She's my own sister. I ain't doing it again. Get all these tears out. I want to cry all my tears out. So if you come and tell me your puppy died, I won't cry because I've got them all out. And I thought maybe nostalgia. I love Pastor Nelson like a brother. And I just think it was God. I was in Friona this morning. I just felt God's presence. And I think whenever I feel that, like that, it means he wants to help some people. Some people in this room today wants to help. And I believe he will. And so I haven't given this to the media department. I looked at their new booth back there. I think they've launched rockets from that booth. I mean, it's technology central. Matthew 16, they have a lot of pictures, and what I'm going to call for each of the pictures when we get to that place. It's going to be an unusual day. I want to tell my story. God put me on this trek on Mother's Day. A friend invited me to speak on Mother's Day. I know I look like one of the Golden Girls with a beard. Just escaped Teen Challenge somewhere. But God used that, and I've been telling my story around the country, and I got an email from a young lady. She said, I saw your story at the Smith Lake campus, and it was like deja vu, and I asked my mother about it, and she said, was this the man who told the story? I said, yeah, Mom, that was it. She said, I don't know how to tell you this. That's your uncle. I've been looking for my brother and his family. And it's just only God could put that together. So I'm gonna read the scripture from Matthew 16, and I'm going to read it from the New King James Version, starting at verse 19. If I can't see, verse 13, and I'll finish at verse 19. And then I'm going to tell my story. In the middle of the story, I'm going to come back to this passage and illuminate a couple of things, finish my story, and pray for people. Is that all right? Let me share a couple of things. Come to the comedy show tonight. The joy of the Lord is our strength. And me and my buddy, Lee McBride, who's funnier than me, he's driven from Birmingham to be here. Got in about midnight last night. You'll love Big Lee McBride, and we're going to make you laugh. But then we're going to pray that the joy of the Lord, which is different than comedians can give, that the joy of the Lord will be your strength tonight. It'll be fun. You're going to laugh. I promise you that. And then on my resource table in the back, we did produce a film called Aren't You Somebody? The title is unusual. It comes from something that happened to a friend of mine in Thailand who was pounding his fist in 1986 on the table saying to a Thai pastor, somebody should stop this trafficking. Somebody needs to stop this. What are you doing about it? What's the government doing about it? Stop this. And the guy looked at him and said, well, you're somebody. Aren't you somebody? And it haunted him, and he went back over there about 20 miles from where those kids got trapped in the cave when it was flooding. There's a movie out now about that called Rescue. 20 miles from there is our two children's home in Chiang Rai, Thailand. And I filmed that in 2019. And we were premiering it at the Gym Theater in March of 2020, and then this thing hit over on the East Coast called Corona. I don't know if you've heard about it over here. And it put us on our heads, so we started doing licensing agreements, and we took it around the country. We showed it 9 times in 8 states, and we sent $15,000 to the Chiang Rai Children's Home during a pandemic. And my wife had a heart attack January 2nd at 59 years of age and almost died. And I realized that we'd kicked up a spiritual hornet's nest, that the enemy was pushing back on us through several other things that had happened to our family. And so when that happens, you don't lay down in a corner, do you? You stand up and you push back in Jesus' name. So much to my lawyer's chagrin, I said, we're not doing another agreement. We're going to give this to the whole wide world. So there's a card back there with one of those little things that you scan on your phone. QR, whatever it is. And you can get this free of charge on any device anywhere in the world. It's a 59-minute film. 4 minutes at the end is the gospel of Jesus Christ in a simple fashion. It does deal with a very heavy theme of trafficking. So caution around children, but I think you will appreciate that, and I want you to have it. Also, the books, anything we have back there, it's for donation. If you need encouragement, pick up one of those new devotional books. I just wrote 3 for $30. I don't care if you just have a nickel, a quarter. If you have a cough drop, I've taken cough drops. I like cough drops. Not the one at the bottom of the purse, got all the hair and all the sticky stuff on it. Come on, man. But But you can, if you need encouragement, go get it and there are hats that say be somebody, and so while supplies last, go take advantage of that. So I want to tell my story. Lord, there is something powerful. We're coming into the Thanksgiving season, and families have to gather around tables. And some of us celebrate our families, and they are precious to us, and it's incredible, and we're part of the family of God, so we love people like I love Pastor Regina and Pastor Nelson and their family, but then we have blood family, we love them, but others gather around families that have caused scars and hurt them. And it's not a season of celebration. They mentally prepare to clock in to go around the table and try to just grit their teeth and maintain until they can clock out and go back home and be away from it. And I pray that today you're going to set some people free. You're going to reach right down and take the chains off of them so that they can go into that table with confidence. So I'm asking for real revelation and insight, words of knowledge, and I'm asking for people who are not right with you that they will love walking with you, and their name will be registered in heaven, not just so they have a pass to heaven, but that they'll enjoy heaven on earth. They can walk in your presence. They can walk with you and talk with you and love you. And I pray that you will help me today, Lord, to communicate your truth to your precious people. In Jesus' name. Matthew 16 and verse 13 from the New King James. I read a different version every year. This year I'm reading the Voice. One year when I read the Amplified, it took me 12 years to read that. All right. Verse 13, and then when Jesus came into the region of Caesarea Philippi, he asked his disciples, saying, who do men say that I, the Son of Man, am? And so they said, some say John the Baptist, and some say Elijah, and others Jeremiah, or one of the prophets. Jesus said to them, but who do you say that I am? Who do you say that I am? And Simon Peter answered and said, you're the Christ, the Son of the living God. And Jesus answered and said to him, blessed are you, Simon Bar-Jonah, for flesh and blood has not revealed this to you, but my Father who's in heaven. And I also say to you that you are Peter, and upon this rock I'll build my church, and the gates of Hades shall not prevail against it. And I will give you the keys of the kingdom of heaven, and whatever you bind on earth will be bound in heaven, and whatever you loose on earth will be loosed in heaven. Let me tell you my story, and I've shared parts of it, but I'm going to share a little bit more detail. Some things Pastor Nelson doesn't even know. All right, this first picture right here, you're thinking, how long is this going to take? It's going to take a minute, all right? That's a baby picture. Cute little kid. One on the right looks like a gremlin. I just realized that. That's one of the only baby pictures I have because my mom didn't want me. She's got, my biological mother had 2 severe mental illnesses, and she was borderline on a third. And she told me herself that she knew how to take care of a kid. And so she'd put me in the attic. And she said, if you don't shut your mouth, the monsters will get you. And she'd put me in the attic when I'd cry. And when I cry, like any 2-year-old would cry, she'd crawl halfway upstairs and make scary sounds. She told me that herself before she passed away. This next photograph right here shows that I live with my grandparents. My grandmother, I found out before my mother died a few years ago. She's holding the white purse, looking like she's about to clock me in the head. She told my biological mother, she said, why'd you drag this kid into my house? I raised my 11 kids. I don't want to raise your kid. My mother was on the right there, a young lady named Glenola Sue Mills. Her sister, Zelphia Madonna Phillips. Now, there's some names right there. I know you guys. My mother was on her way to get an illegal abortion in 1963. My mother's sister, Zelphia Madonna, said, let that little baby be born. You never know what the little baby might become. I'm happy for that. I don't have a single memory of my grandmother. God helps us forget sometimes, but my grandfather, I'm named after him. I'm standing in front of him. His name is Clessy Roland Mills. In Indiana, it's pronounced Rollin. I changed my name in college because I hit a jump shot from the corner, and our comedian tonight, Lee McBride, was on the microphone, and he said, from the parking lot, roll in Joe Phillips. I said, behold, I shall be called Roland instead of Rollin from this day forward and forevermore. I changed my pronunciation on the spot that night. But this guy loved me. I remember him a lot. He was as cool as the other side of the pillow. The next photograph shows you. So they came to Clessy and they said, now, Clessy, you got to give Joey away. My mother was trying to give me away, steady give me away. She said, I can't ever get a man dragging a kid behind me. She never did have a man. I found my biological father through a private investigator when I was 30 years old. I had 2 conversations with him. He dropped dead July the 6th, 1996, before I could get up there to meet him. They said, Clessy, you got to give this little boy away. You'll never be alive to see him graduate. When I graduated high school, a man I hadn't seen in about 10 or 11 years threw the little mill house door open, walked inside, and he had driven from Indiana to Columbus, Georgia, and he screamed, I'm alive, which I thought was pretty cool. I thought that was pretty cool. Next photograph shows you the family that took me in. The guy on the far right was 23 years old. I was 3 years old when he adopted me. He was my first cousin by blood. So with the judge's signature and that lady in the middle, I call Mom from here on out. She's still alive. I buried my dad when he was 63. My mom is still alive. She'll see me this Christmas, the Lord willing. She was 20 when they adopted me. And so with the judge's signature, 1967, my cousin became my dad. My mom became my aunt. My aunt became my grandmother. My grandparents became my great-grandparents. That's why I flunked all my math classes. My family tree looks like a shrub. This next photograph shows you around or on or around the day that they took me in. So life was good. I understand about adoption. See, we moved from Indiana, where they got me, to Big Spring, Texas, out here. When my dad was in the Air Force and he was a mechanic out here. And so my mother would take me to a Texas Kmart and she would say, now look around, Joey. She's saying, all these people here, see all those people with kids? They had to bring those kids home from the hospital. That's the law. But me and your dad, we went out and we chose you. I bet y'all said that too, hadn't you? I've been adopted twice, and it feels good. I've been adopted in the kingdom of heaven. When they adopted me, they tried to give me a bath, and I'd scream like they were waterboarding me. And my mother, they couldn't even get me close to the bathtub, and I really believed that my biological mother sometimes would bathe me and put me under the water. I wasn't sure she'd bring me back up from the water. That's how we started life. And life was good when I got adopted. This next photograph shows you a lot of stuff. I remember that red wagon I got when I was 6 years old, went fishing, pinball machine when I was in the 5th grade there at the Big Spring Air Force Base. Next photograph shows you baseball and Tinker Toys. And life was really, really, really good for me from the age of 3 to 15 until it wasn't anymore. My dad got mugged. I'm going to say some things about my parents. And there's no virtue in throwing your parents under the bus, just the opposite. Honor your mother and father, which is the first commandment with a promise that life goes well with you and that you enjoy it on the earth. It doesn't say honor your honorable mother and father. I'm saying things that are truth, but I'm not trying to dishonor my dad. When he got beaten severely, it changed him. In Tampa, Florida, they drug him through an alley. He had 1,000 fire ant bites on him, and I didn't even know what those were up in the Midwest where we were living. He was down there on business. Something happened. I don't know all the details, don't want to know all the details, but it changed his facial features. It changed his personality. I never really had my dad back again. And so at the age of 15, my dad said, let's go to Hartselle. We were living in North Alabama at the time, and we just moved there, and he said, I got to go get a pair of shoes. It was 3 o'clock on a Tuesday afternoon. I was 15 years old. I had my learner's permit, so he was in the passenger seat. He said, Joe, I want to talk to you about something. I don't love your mother anymore, which shocked me because my adopted parents, they never fought. They never argued. They're salt of the earth people. And I don't love her. I'm going to get a divorce from your mother if you can take it. That's what he said, if you can take it. If you can't take it, I'm going to wait till you graduate. The day after you graduate high school, then I'm going to get a divorce from your mother. What do you want me to do? And I didn't know the Lord. And he gave me the good sense to say, you guys are my whole world. I remember saying that. Y'all are my whole world. I don't want you to do that. But Dad, you're a grown man. You got to make your own decisions. And a week later, my mom, who never saw it coming, she moved to Arcadia, Florida from Decatur, Alabama. And a week after that, this lady moved in here. Let's put this next picture on the screen. She moved in and got two daughters, two different fathers. She wasn't much older than me. She used to work for my dad. Cold hard facts are I'd actually been on a date with that lady. Now imagine the psychology of that for a teenage boy. And when they moved into my 900 square foot little duplex, hate moved into my heart, square into my heart. I hated everybody and everything. I was confused. I was angry. Life had flipped me upside down. I did not know Jesus. I will have gone to 4 high schools in 4 states in 4 years. I mean, I'm so transient, so dysfunctional. I lived for one thing and one thing only, and that was basketball. See if you can pick me out of my senior picture. Take your time. I gained some weight. Tell me when you got it. Played in 4 different high schools in 4 states and 2 different universities, and I think this inner city team from Georgia is one of the best teams I ever played with. That guy bottom left, number 10, Tony Taylor, he was probably the best player I ever played with or against, and we played against Dominique Wilkins' brother. He was fantastic. But that coach on the far right, he's light complected like me. I was taken in during this time by a lot of different families. I was so confused. I was taken in by the Griggs and the Grindles and the Heidels and the Ammons. The Woods took me in, changed my life. And the McCatherines took me in, and I went from the McCatherines' house to Columbus to give it one more shot with my dad. November 1980. And I rolled up into the little mill house that they had rented, and I walked in, and I greeted my dad and the lady and the kids, and I threw the keys on the table, and I found the school. Wasn't far away, a few blocks. Walked to the school, found the gym. It was after hours, and then this team was in the gym practicing. And I walked in, and they blew the whistle and said, "Can I help you?" And I said, I came to try out for your basketball team. I just moved to town about 10 minutes ago." He said, "Son, we already picked our team." I said, "Well, that just figures. That's how life goes for me. All right, y'all have a good day." He said, "Hang on a minute. Come here, kid. Take a ball down there to that practice goal and shoot some free throws for me." So I went down to my street clothes, shot 10. I must have had an anointing on me. I made 10 out of 10. He said, "Hey, kid, I found you a jersey over here. Come here, man." They had a free throw problem, I think. So life was looking up a little bit, but I was still angry, still mad, still confused. Then the next day I go in. The next photograph shows I've been healed of my anorexia. You can tell how skinny I was. We really didn't have food all the time. I went to my neighbor's house about 3 or 4 nights a week for 2 reasons. They had food, and their daughter was the head cheerleader of my school. And I'd just wait around until they'd have dinner. And they knew what was going on. I didn't think they knew. I said, "Oh, y'all going to eat? Let me come in here and watch Jeopardy for a little while." "Well, we got food." "Don't you need to go home and eat, Joey?" "Nah, I'm going to watch Jeopardy. I'm good." "We got an extra." "Nah, we're just going to throw this pork chop or cantaloupe away." I said, "You're going to throw it away? You're going to throw it away? Don't throw it away." Next photograph shows the guy that changed my life. I walked into, somebody give me a tablet or something. I need a man up here. I walked into this guy's math class. He had a flat top crew cut. Shirt didn't always match his pants as I remember, but his wife's real fashionable, so my memories must be suspect. But I do remember his shoes had a party. His pants did not always have the invitation to attend. He'd say dumb things. He'd say, "You walk out that second story window, you think you're going to fly?" "What?" "You go to Panama City, your car hit a tree. Is the tree going to move?" "Is this like a hybrid math Southern philosophy class? What are you talking about?" There's something weird about that guy. That guy will change my life. We'll get back to that in just a moment. I've gone to some therapists because of the dysfunction in my adult life. There's no shame in your game to get some spirit-filled person that knows what they're doing. If you have a problem with your hernia, you can go to the hernia specialist person. So if you have a problem with your brain. I told my therapist lady the story, and she said, you have dissociative something or other. She said, it's some disorganized attachment, something or other. She said, people that have your story never have relationships in adulthood that are normal. The fact that you have a family and a ministry means you're a miracle. I said, I know I'm a miracle, lady. I know I'm a miracle. I went to another couple that I trust very much. He's on my board, and I was having a little bit of an internal struggle, and she said, you need to go through this thing called sozo. So we sat down. It wasn't very mystical in my office in metal chairs, and there this lady and her husband. She opened a notebook, and she just said, now, when you were in that attic, she said, when you were in that attic as a baby, I have to ask you this question. Where was Jesus when you were going through that? That was a great question. It was really an important question in my life. But it's not the most important question. The most important question we just read from Matthew chapter 16. It's not where was Jesus. It is who is Jesus to you. And I've been thinking a lot about the difference between perspective and perception. Perspective and perception sound like the same things, but they're not exactly the same thing. Perception is the thing that hits your cognitive resources. It's the information that hits you instantly in those five senses of yours. It's the information that comes from a particular situation. Your perspective is the worldview that you build around that initial perception. Let me give an example. I don't like looking at roadkill. Out here in Texas, I saw a dead cow yesterday on the side of the road. There's a Bible verse for that. These things ought not to be. Because I have a queasy stomach. So when I see a dead thing on the side of the road, and I've seen thousands of them in my career, I ascertain two things in a millisecond. Number one, is it a human? It has never been. God help us, it will never be human. Number two, is it impeding my progress? It rarely does, so I just keep on rolling and refuse to look at it. Like Job, I make a covenant with my eyes. My wife's a registered nurse. She's a science person. She's a little bit different. We see a dead thing. Oh, I think there's the small intestine. There's the spleen. I got a queasy stomach. I'm sorry. The camo portion will be here tonight. I'm the tuxedo person. The other day I was following that 18-wheeler. I saw a dead thing on the side of the road. Ascertained those two things in a millisecond. I keep on rolling for Jesus. Imagine my absolute shock when that dead thing flew up into my windshield. And it wasn't a dead thing at all. It was a cardboard deal shaped like a dead thing with an oil spot on it. But you could put me on a lie detector and say, Joe, did you see a dead thing on the highway, whatever, mile marker, whatever? And I could have said yes and passed a lie detector, but it would not have been the truth, you see. Because at the end of the day, it doesn't matter what your perception is or it doesn't matter what your perspective is. Only thing that matters is perfection. What is the truth? Jesus said, you'll know the truth, and the truth will set you free. Give you one more example. So the other day, I've got grandkids, and so my backyard's pretty snaky, saw a copperhead, and so I decided to man up and do something about it. I was going to hire a guy for $1,000 to go, and I flex that thing, write that check. But then I said, I'm still got the juice. I can still do it myself. So I went down to Lowe's and bought $850 worth of equipment. Chainsaw and a blower and a weed eater, all battery powered. And I asked the fella, because I'm eco-friendly, does this battery last a long time? He goes, oh, yeah, it lasts a long time. That was a lie. It lasts about 5 minutes. It's the lazy man's dream. You charge it for 60. So I bought extra batteries. I went down there and cut all the trees out, drug them to the road, and I was very proud of my work. And I went, hey, Cecilia, come here. We got neighbors right back there. Look right there. There's a neighbor right there. And I was proud of my work. About that time, a woman came out. She's standing I never met her. She's standing at the property line. She's got her hands on her hips. She's touching her head. She's doing this. She's making gestures. And another woman walks out. It must have been her adult daughter. She's pointing. I'm like, immediately my perception was, I have cut this woman's rose bushes down or something. This woman is furious. That was the information that hit my cognitive resources. This woman is mad at me. So now I'm building a worldview around it, my perspective. I've got to do something about this. I got to go call a surveyor. I thought I knew where the property line was. Maybe it dips in like I don't know what's going on. I got to get my wife to make a pan of brownies and take it to her. It's an African-American family. I'm not a racist. I got to prove that I'm not a racist. How do you prove a negative? I couldn't even go to sleep that night. Next morning, I'm out there on the deck having time with the Lord. Here she comes again. There she goes. And I'm like, okay, I'm going to start building a bridge right now. I said, I'll be right back, Lord. And I started walking down the steps. I said, well, as a matter of fact, won't you come with me, Lord? Won't you come with me? Got halfway down my yard. I said, hello. You must be the new neighbor. She said, yeah. Did you do this? Ma'am, did you do this? Yes, ma'am, I did that. This looks incredible. This is amazing. It opens everything up. I knew you felt that way. I could just tell. My perception was wrong. My perspective was wrong. When it comes to Jesus, people thought a lot of things about Jesus wasn't really true. It was sort of true. Remember when they were in the boat and there was a problem and Jesus was walking on the water? They went, ah, it's a ghost. Well, that's sort of right. He is God the Son. There is God the Father, and there is God the Holy Ghost. The three are one. So it's kind of like a ghost, but not. He's not a ghost. He's much, much more than what they were thinking that he was. But that was the thing that hit their cognitive resources, and it was wrong. People get the idea about Jesus is wrong all the time. He's just a mystical figure. He's just that thing. He's just that thing that we pray to when we need stuff. Just out there. You remember at the tomb, Mary goes and weeps and he's gone. And there's somebody standing there and she says, if you have laid him somewhere, tell me where you put him. And she thought he was the gardener. Well, he's sort of a gardener. John chapter 15, he prunes us, but he's way more than a gardener. And her cognitive resources gave her the wrong perception, which gave her the wrong perspective. And you remember when Simon Peter was fishing, he was on a backslidden bender. He wasn't supposed to fish for fish anymore. And there was a man on the shore over there. Cast your net on the other side. They thought it was just a guy giving fishing advice. Well, he's sort of a guy. And the Word became flesh and lived for a while among us, and we beheld His glory. But He's way more than just a guy. It wasn't until the disciple whom Jesus loved bends down in the ear of Simon Peter, and John says, that's no gardener, that's no ghost, and that's no guy. That's God. That's God. So I don't know what your perspective is. Maybe you think He is a gardener. He's necessary. He's a low-level functionary. He's not somebody we're going to invite to a soiree. Or maybe you think he's just a guy. He's just not even. But I'm here to tell you, he is God. We felt him this morning in this room. So it was a different day, man. It was a different day. Back to the story. Used to have smoking sections in public schools. The old people remember that, right? Like, for kids, not just for teachers. They had their own. Like, what are you going to do? I'm going to go grab a cigarette before calculus, that kind of thing. Went to my high school prom with my 29-year-old school teacher. Who does that? Lost people and weirdos. I sat down by this man one day. He was out in the breezeway. And I was having a particularly bad day. Some days when we did have food at the table, the plate would fly across and hit the wall beside us. I'm not trying to throw my dad under the bus. He wouldn't live like that if he was in his right mind. I was having one of those kind of days. And I sat beside this teacher. I said, Mr. Reader, I checked with the office, and I did. What kind of kid does that? I said, I asked him, do you have lunch duty? You don't have lunch duty. But you sit out here every day. You ain't even eating lunch most days. You're not doing anything but staring at us. And frankly, you're starting to creep me out a little bit. Why do you sit out here every day? And the answer he gave me 39 years ago, put this microphone in my hand this very day. He told me this. I've been waiting on you. When he said that, tears filled my eyes. Tough inner city basketball player. People looking at me, I'm like, it's allergies. Move along, shut your mouth. I said, I hate my life. Told him what was going on. I said, Mr. I got 2 pairs of pants. I don't have a vehicle. Ain't no way on earth. I have an opportunity to go to college. They've been promising me athletic scholarships, and nobody's doing anything about it. He said, I want you to come work on my farm. I know where you live, son. Just walk to my house Saturday morning, 7 o'clock. I'll carry you to Opelika, Alabama. I got a farm over there, and you can work it. Life's looking up for me, man. I got me a job. So I got there at 7 o'clock on Saturday morning, went to his farm 45 minutes away in an old Chevrolet step-side pickup truck. He worked me like a Hebrew slave for a $10 bill, turkey bologna sandwich, and an RC Cola. And he threw in a faded banana. About $10 more than I had. And I snuck in with my friend down the street, played football. Tim, we snuck into the Smugglers Inn on Macon Road. Now Tim is a captain in the police force. We used to sneak in with fake IDs. I guess he was undercover even back then. So we did that for about 3 or 4 weeks. I'd go to the farm, get that $10 bill, sneak in Smugglers Inn. Now it's a Longhorn Steakhouse, much better use of the space than a discotheque. So we did that, and then about 3rd or 4th week, Mr. Reader says, hey, Joe, why don't you walk back up here tomorrow, and I'll carry you to a church. I said, Mr. Reader, I really appreciate you giving me this job, but I'm not very religious. I appreciate it, sir. Then he cheated. Ladies, it ain't hard to understand men. You start feeding us good food. Man, I ate some food last night in West Texas. Tears came to my eyes. I wrote something in my diary about it last night. It was so good. He said, I tell you what, now, if you come back up here, we'll carry you to church. Patricia will make you homemade fried chicken, cornbread, butter beans, banana pudding, make you want to slap somebody. It's so good. I said, what kind of religion are you, Mr. Reader? I said, I can be Baptist for banana pudding. I'll be Catholic for cornbread, you know. So he took me to a Pentecostal church like this. I've never been to one. I walked in, there's a bunch of people on stage. They all wearing the same dress with the same collar on it. They all were waving at me with their eyes closed. I didn't know none of them. They were the friendliest people. I'm like, hey, y'all. They were offering purses. I'd been to church twice. They passed a plate. These people passed these little bags. I was looking for juicy fruit. I didn't know what was going on. But I was getting banana pudding. That's all I cared about. I did get freaked out a little bit. They were putting grease on people's head, and the guy spoke Swahili. I'm like, hey, keep your eyes on the chicken, eyes on the chicken, eyes on the chicken. But there was an invisible presence in that room like we felt this morning in this room, and I feel right now. It's something I couldn't, 18 years old, I couldn't get away from it. So we did that little program for about 3 or 4 weeks. The farm, the nightclub, church, farm, nightclub, and church. I wish I could tell you I got born again in a beautiful church like this. Man, every time I come, y'all make incredible improvements. It's beautiful. I would love to say that I came to an altar like in this church. But it was at the Smugglers Inn one night, dancing with a married lady. It's burned in my brain. To be honest, I was dancing like a typical white guy. Minding my own business. When I heard a voice that was louder than Rick James and Kool and the Gang coming through those speakers, that voice told me, I love you, Joe. I have something better for you than this. And I stopped and did that ugly shoulder shaking crying. And the Fort Benning guys, I couldn't hear them because of the music, but I could read their lips. He's drunk. I was too poor to be drunk. I hadn't been drunk. I wasn't going to waste my $10. I was an athlete. I wasn't going to waste my $10 on that. But I'd heard from God. That night, I walked out of darkness. I walked into the light. I've been walking in the light ever since that day. So when I go back, next picture, when I go back, I honor these people. I celebrate these people. They asked me to officiate his funeral 2 years ago. He only came to the Pentecostal church, Pastor Nelson, by assignment. It wasn't his flavor. He didn't like it. He said God told him to do it. And as soon as the assignment was complete, he went back to what he was comfortable with, the Baptist church. And that's okay. Thank God for that assignment. It got my attention. I preached his funeral. And I said in that funeral back at the farm in Opelika, I said, God, I'll never be able to pray this with integrity again at any other funeral in my life. Thank you for this man that we are now putting into this ground. Because of his life and telling me about Jesus, I'm going to walk on streets of gold. Thank you for that, Lord. Hallelujah. Next photograph. This is my family. These are old pictures raising these kids. Pastor and Pastor Regina, they recognize some of these. Next photograph. God can change the picture. I'm just telling you right now. He can change the picture from what you're going through. Next photograph. This was at my son's wedding. He's in the Maldives right now celebrating his honeymoon, wherever the Maldives is. I don't think it's anywhere near Brownsville, Texas. I think it's my oldest son is a pastor and an entrepreneur, and my youngest son is an accountant, and I've got a daughter who teaches Bible and another daughter that preaches and teaches history. But before my biological mom died, I was able to take 3 of my 4 kids to her in Indiana and love her and tell her, make sure she knows that she's forgiven. And those people that were in my office telling me, where was Jesus? I took them to Indiana, and Gracie went into a room and led my mother to Jesus Christ before she passed away. Because God can change the picture. Next photograph. These are my grandbabies. You think anybody's going to take them away from us? It'd be like taking a gun away from a Texas farmer. You ain't getting these kids. I can promise you that right now. God can change the picture. So I close with this now. Imagine if I was really creative, and we're going to do this in 2022, the Lord willing, and I had drug a trailer behind my truck, and I put on this beautiful stage prison cells. They look absolutely real, but they're really just little PVC pipe painted black. And in each one of these prison cells, I've got a little cot, and I've got a little bucket, and I got a little tin pan right there. And I got a bench over here. And I've come early enough to work with some of you, and I'll just walk out and I'll grab a lady. And you guys don't know about it, but she knows about it. And I'll tell that lady, I'm putting you in this prison cell of my unforgiveness. Bam! You represent my biological mother. You tried to kill me. You gave me away. You rejected me. I still have issues at 57 because of your rejection. Now you stay in there. Stay in there. And I grab another guy, and I put him in there, and I said, you're my dad. Why did you do that to my mom? Why did you kick her out of the house? You stay in there. And you shut your mouth, and I'll tell you when you can come out. And I grab another person. You wrecked my home. You're a home wrecker. And I grab another person. You fired me for no reason. You rejected me, and you shut your mouth. And then I grab another person, and I throw them in. You lied about me. And I got a bench right here, and I grab 3 people. And I say, you didn't return my email. I haven't decided if I'm going to put you in my prison yet. You didn't invite me to lunch. How rude. I can't remember why I'm mad at you. You're just ugly. You just sit there until I try to figure out what I'm going to do with you. And I feel pretty good about it. These people did me wrong. But then I go to church. We worship you. And then for some reason, Pastor decides to lead the congregation in the Lord's Prayer. Our Father which art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Yes. Give us today our daily bread. Yes. Forgive us our debts. Yes, I got so many I need you to forgive me for, but then I see the train wreck coming. I can see it coming. Forgive us our debts. Lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. And I just feel good and religious because I got these people in my prison and I'm the warden. And they've done me wrong. See, Jesus says to Peter, once you figure out who I am, then you can figure out who you are. Who do you say I am? You got it right. Now let me tell you who you are. And then he says, I'm giving you the keys. So now I'm just working this out as I go. What if somebody, I never had thought about this, what somebody walks up and hands me a set of keys? Now I got the keys and I got to figure out what to do. Here's the problem with being the warden of a prison of unforgiveness. You got to keep feeding these people. You got to let them out an hour a day to get out in the yard. You got to maintenance the locks. You got to dump the buckets. You got to take care of the prison, and it's a lot of work. But now this man right here just handed me a set of keys, and I have a choice. And I can go to my mother, and you can go to your mother that you're about to go on Thursday and eat a meal with that was horrible to you. And I can put that key in that lock, and I can let them out. And this little old lady in West Virginia taught me this. She says, Pastor Joe, when you forgive somebody, you got to say, I forgive you, and I lay nothing to your charge. They don't owe you anything. So I open up the prison, and I let my mom out. And she said, let me explain. And I say, you don't owe me an explanation. You're free. I'm not going to maintain this anymore. And I let you out. Let me give you $1. You don't owe me $1. You're free. You get to go out. And I let you out. Let me owe you an apology. You don't owe me an apology. Go. And so what happens is when all these cells are empty, you know who really gets free? I'm free. I don't have to maintain that anymore. I am free. I am free. And some of you, that little story I put up there, that's Mr. Rogers compared to what you've been through. Abuse, abandon, spouse walks out on you. You've been rejected. Congratulations, because you have known him in the fellowship of his suffering. He was despised and rejected. Stand to your feet, would you?